Hey YouTube friends, on Grow and Be Fruitful, we have fun as we learn to use what we have and do it yourself. And today we're going to make our own cornmeal and grits from this Jimmy Red corn I grew. I'm really excited to share this video with you. I've been working on it for months. I planted this Jimmy Red corn way back in April. You can see it's all spent and used up and dried out now. But I planted it way back at the end of April, and I started harvesting it in July 5th, and it's been hanging and drying ever since. And now it's time to shell the kernels off the cob with an antique sheller that's over 100 years old. And then we're gonna mill the corn, and we're gonna make our own grits and cornmeal that's better than anything you can buy in the grocery store. So get ready, let's dig in. Here is the signs that the corn is ready to pick. So number one, the silks here at the end of the corn cob are nice and dry and brown. Number two, the corn has angled away from the main stem. Number three, inside feels kind of full as I just kind of squeeze. The corn feels full. Now ideally I would have left the corn on the stalks for longer. You could have actually let them dry on the corn stalks, but I had a problem. I had an infestation of Japanese beetles, and I wasn't too worried about them eating the leaves or the tassels of the corn, but they were getting on the corn silks themselves and eating it all the way down to the tip of the corn cob, and even going into the corn itself sometimes. And that was keeping the corn from being able to pollinate, and it was just I was afraid it was going to destroy the harvest altogether. So I wanted to go ahead and get it out of the field as quick as possible. For my harvesting here, I'm going to be using this homemade garden hod. This is a special basket that I made. Will be really useful for collecting my corn. So to hang these up and dry, we're gonna just pull off about half of the leaves around the corn husk. Get rid of some of them. Get rid of about half of them. And then we're going to leave a few on so that we can tie a couple of stalks together. And then that will be how we can hang these corn cobs up, so that they get lots of air circulation around them and all of these corn kernels can dry. So we're going to get 2 of these and then tie them together. So let's do another one. We'll pull off most of the outer leaves on the husk, and we throw all these leaves, all this husk can go in our compost pile. Make some good fertilizer, good compost for next year. So we'll just kind of get about half of these leaves off of the outside so it's not so bulky. And then we'll use the inner leaves. We'll leave them attached and use them to tie this corn cob to that other corn cob. And then we can hang them up. It's pretty, isn't it? And I think it's going to get darker as it dries. Okay, so we've got that, and we've got these fibrous corn husks. And we'll just use a couple of those to kind of tie them to this one. Now you want to make sure when you're tying this, remember, this is not string. It's not rope. It's not very strong, so don't get carried away trying to pull it really super tight. It doesn't have to be super tight. We're not trying to climb a mountain. It just has to be tight enough to hold this weight of these two corn cobs. So once we kind of I'm just doing a simple square knot, and then another one to kind of tighten it so that it doesn't come undone. Maybe just kind of use your fingers to tighten it up a little bit. And you can see how it hangs on my finger. You got one corn cob here, and one corn cob here. And then we're gonna hang this up on a string in my garage. So the reason I'm doing this in my garage is because it's warmer than it is in the house, because no air conditioning in my garage, and of course it's dry in here, and this is going to keep the birds off of it and insects and those sort of things. So I have taken and just tied some sturdy string across these little bracket supports for my garage doors, and I've got another string that's going to go all the way across there as well. So I got plenty of room to hang these corn cobs up there. So I'm just going to take these and I'm going to hang them over that string. So now you can see I've just got those corn cobs hanging on that string. Just flopped it over. And we'll leave it up here, and we'll put a little box fan on it to just kind of keep it air circulating, and we'll see how many weeks it takes to dry. So I got this Red Chief corn sheller from a lady in Cleveland, Tennessee, who said she used to shell corn with her grandpa 50 years ago using this. But it's actually a model that goes all the way back to 1918. I'm so excited to be able to use it. It's just so cool to me to be thinking about bringing something that's been just collecting dust and rusting for so many years and bringing it back to life. I love the history of it. I love the thought of giving it new life. That is something that just really appeals to me. It works really simple. You just put the cob in the top hopper, and you kind of grind it around with the teeth, and it actually has a neat little function where it expels the corn right back into your hand after it goes through. Now, it's a self-adjusting mechanism, so it's supposed to be able to handle different size corn cobs. You can adjust it a little bit. My corn, because some of it was a little bit small, some of it was big, some of it didn't get all of the corn kernels off the cob, but for the most part I think it worked very well. Definitely much easier than doing it all by hand. So I had a lot of fun doing it, and I got all of my corn shelled in probably 30 minutes. So I thought it worked really well. One problem that I did have was my box that I used was kind of shallow, and so a lot of the kernels were popping out of the box and getting on the floor. And so I put this cardboard on just to kind of make it where it would catch more kernels. And I think it worked pretty good. I wanted to use the original box that I got from the lady because that history just appealed to me. But I think next year I'll build a bigger box and kind of tweak the design a little bit. Otherwise, pretty happy with how it all turned out. And all together, I was able to shell quite a bit of this Jimmy Red corn. Now that's the raw corn kernels. It also has some dust and some chaff mixed in with it. So we're gonna have to clean that all out. And let me show you how I do that. Now this method goes way back to ancient times, way back. And you can read about this method in the Bible. Although they weren't cleaning corn, they used to clean wheat this way. wheat and barley and different kinds of grain. They would just throw it up in the air on a windy day, and the wind would carry away the dust and the leaves and the chaff and any kind of dirt that might be in the grain. Well, in modern times, we're going to use a box fan to kind of create the wind that we need, and we're simply pouring the corn, about a foot and a half, 2 feet into a bowl, and the wind is going to blow all of that corn away. So altogether, I got 5.5 pounds of corn kernels, and it's cleaned up really good. The chaff and some of the smaller, lighter corn kernels, that's going to go into my chicken scratch. We're going to give that to our chickens. Now I put all this corn into these jars. I want to be able to keep it nice and airtight and keep the weevils out of it. And I'm also, just to be safe, I don't see any bugs in this, but just to be safe, I'm going to freeze this for at least 24 hours, probably 48 hours, just to make sure I kill any bugs or weevils or anything that might be in the corn, or any eggs or anything like that as well. 48 hours in the freezer, that stuff will be history. 48 hours in the freezer, there are absolutely no eggs that could survive in this corn. This project was a win-win. My wife got a new KitchenAid mixer, I got a grain mill. And on this grain mill, it has a handy adjustment, and you can adjust between coarse and fine. So we add our dried corn kernels to the hopper in the top of the grain mill attachment on the KitchenAid mixer. And let's give it a run and see what it looks like. I did some playing around with adjustments for the fineness and coarseness, and also the speed of the mixer. This will be our grits. We're going to go ahead and sift out the very coarsest of material and just leave the grits. And we do that using this sifter. That looks about right. Let's go ahead and make a bowl of grits and see how it tastes and what is the texture. We'll add a little cheddar cheese and some butter and salt and pepper. And I use about a 4-to-1 ratio of water to grits. Man, it really tastes fresh. Love it. So we're gonna go on now and we're gonna grind some cornmeal. So I'll adjust the setting to a finer setting. And one thing I noticed at the fine settings, the grain mill runs a lot slower. So we're gonna have to speed it up. I checked owner's manual for the mixer and it said it was fine to run the mill on its highest setting. So we're gonna go ahead and turn it up. Now, one problem that this mixer does have that I don't like is that the bowl doesn't sit well directly underneath the grain mill. So I used a little piece of styrofoam from the packaging just to sort of help it get in the right place. Again, we will sift out any coarse grains that didn't mill down to the fine quality that I want for my cornmeal. And then we'll check to see if it's the right texture. Looks about right. Time to make some cornbread. I'll post the recipe for this cornbread in the description, but it's basically milk and eggs and butter, half flour, half cornmeal, salt, baking powder. Mix the dry ingredients together separately, mix the wet ingredients together separately, then pour the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients and combine it. Next, we're going to add the batter to our skillet, and you'll notice there's butter already in the skillet. You want to be sure to use an 8 to 10 inch skillet. And then you're going to put that in your oven and bake it for 20 minutes at 425 degrees. I'll be enjoying this cornbread today with some broccoli and some of my own homegrown canned field peas and some chicken. Look at that beautiful cornbread. It smells so good, has such a wonderful color and texture, and it's just so good. My daughter said she could eat the whole pan. Proverbs 27:22 says, "You cannot separate a fool from their foolishness, even though you grind them like grain with a mortar and pestle." Boy, I love the way it puts that. And it's so true. Some people are just fools. You can't do anything about it. It will take a miracle from God to fix them. Thankfully, God can do miracles. He raised Jesus from the dead. And for some fools, it will take a miracle just as big to save a fool from their own foolishness. So, if you want or need to separate a fool from their foolishness, you better just start praying. You can't do anything to help them. And don't beat yourself up trying to help them. Only God can help them. And He can. So, get busy praying and putting it in God's hands through prayer. And if you're the one who is the fool, you better pray too. And you better surrender your life to Christ. I said, surrender. Surrender. That's unconditional. That's when you raise the white flag and you say, Lord, I can't do it. I give it to you. Because friend, your fool way won't ever work. When you learn that, then you'll be glad to let go and give it to God. And you better just give it up and turn it over to Jesus anyway. Jesus can save you from hell, and He can save you from your own fool self. He can make you a completely new person, and that's what a fool needs. A fool needs to become a brand new creation. And that's the work of God. That's my thoughts for today. Now let's get out there and let's grow and be fruitful.